What's up, y'all? I should have opted for the handheld because I feel like I gotta be there. I can do this. Man, where do I start? I think I'll start by saying, come back for Rocky. You know, as I was telling someone, I was like, you know, I feel like if Michael Jordan didn't play in the finals where he got the flu, and then Phil Jackson looked at Pip and he's like, all right, Mike's out. I need you to step in. I know. But that's how I feel right now, because Rocky, to me, is kind of like the beginning place of me finding kind of my voice. I lean a lot on Rocky and having the past with his staff retreat. And it's just been monumental for my career and me as a person. And so I was just like, you know, first shout out to Rocky. A little about myself. So I'm from Oakland, California. I was born and raised like kind of the East Bay. That's, if you don't know where Oakland is, it's like right across the water from San Francisco. Born to my mom, who's a fashion designer, my dad, who was a creative, but also like head of IT at Perot Museum, so he kind of just went the other route. But so I know you guys are wondering like where I got my name from. My two uncles, Jerry and Sean, really were fighting over to get. I'm the firstborn, so they were like, you know, which one are you gonna name us after? And they were like, you know, like, how about we just mix your names? And so Jerry, Sean, mixed together, JerSean. There you go. So, shoot. So I saw that Rocky was gonna talk about uniqueness, and I feel like a name like JerSean is pretty unique. I got something to say about being unique. Growing up, like, no one can pronounce my name, and was something I was kind of like very ashamed to like own. Like let me just make it easy for you, just call me Jay. And for a long time, I kind of just blended in. I didn't really stand out, and that was okay for me because I was safe. I didn't really, you know, feel like I was special. And once I learned to own it, and it starts like, once I learned to like own who I was, I started to find out little things about me that was a lot different. And I was able to tell my stories that way and find out how to tell my stories in a different way. And so that's a little bit of what I feel like I'm going to talk about today. Going off the cuff here. But let me see. I feel kind of. Is this cool? Can you hear me in the back? Y'all good? You good? All right. So, man, where do I start? So, 2006 was probably rough for a lot of people. You know, we got celebrities dying, the new era of like America. And I was going through a lot of personal things that kind of made a lot of personal change that I had to really sit back and evaluate what the rest of my life was gonna look like. And so 2016 summed up was like a whole bunch of change for me. And so it challenged me in every aspect of my life, and including my business and finding out what I am to do with the gift that I'm given, be it photography, video, and design, which I feel like since 14 years old, my dad brought a computer home and my mom nearly like ripped him to shreds because she's like, we could barely afford what we like, you know, all the necessities. And my dad was like, well, you know, everyone's getting a computer right now. I think it's a good idea. And he looks at me, he goes, there's Photoshop on it. And I'm like, Photoshop? Like, what am I gonna do with Photoshop? But at 14, I was able to kind of start my own business in this weird way. I was designing people's business cards. I was doing things like taking pictures of flowers and then incorporating into like designs that people were asking me to do, like flyers for like different parties, and people would call me and say, hey, can you do my logo? So I got my start in design. And then from there, I went to a program that was in the inner city of Oakland called DUSTY. It's an acronym for Digital Underground Storytelling for Youth. And there, I was able to, just to give you a picture of what Oakland was like and why I'm not there anymore. Oakland is a rough city. I was literally living on the streets, and like right there, my house is here, right there was like a crack house. And like around the clock, 24/7, you would see people coming in, coming out, and just like, my mom would be like, get to school. Don't look at them, don't, things like that. And so that's the neighborhood I was kind of like grew up in. And my mom and dad let me walk to school, which was like 7 or 8 blocks away from my house. And so being in that environment, they had to get creative and figure out ways to keep me out of trouble. So Dusty was one of those ways. In Dusty, I learned, let me see. I think it was Final Cut, but it may have been Premiere. They were teaching kids. It was like amongst like maybe 10 of us, 10 or 12 of us, in this basement of this Victorian home that was kind of restored. But there, I was amongst 12 other kids that we were just being taught poetry, getting taught, how to make music, and then how to edit photos that we were finding on Google to our poems and things like that. So we were just learning how to storytell. So not unbeknown to me, that would end up being like my destiny, so to speak, and what I would be doing now full time. And so I became one of the standout students in that class, and in that following summer, I became one of the peer instructors and was paid. That was my first paid job. And I was getting ready to go into high school, and I did, freshman year, sophomore year, and I'm the oldest of 5. So my parents were like, okay, I don't know if we can do all you guys in this city, so let's uproot us, and we moved to Dallas. When I moved to Dallas, I was in McKinney, and before I moved to Dallas, I was like, we're moving to Dallas? Like, we're cows and like cowhide, like all, I didn't know what to, I really honestly thought there was gonna be like cows and horses walking down the street like cars were driving in San Francisco. Like, really honestly thought that. And when I got here, it was like definite culture shock, because McKinney at the time wasn't as developed as McKinney is now. It was very just exactly what I thought it was gonna be. And so, and city boy to the country, I'm going like, okay, what am I gonna do? You took me away from my first girlfriend ever, and you tell me to make friends out here with all these white people. So, but I mean, it ended up being fine. No hate crimes. But that different perspective, I think, rounded me out. I think I made it my own. I kind of made friends. I went on to be one of a creative at a local church in Frisco for like 5 years. They kind of rounded out like kind of my rough edges in editing and photography and video and things like that. And so back in 2012, I was like, okay, I think I can do this on my own. So I went freelance. And 2012, 2014, I started out, before I went freelance, from 2010 to 2012, I was just kind of shooting on the weekends, shooting people's senior photos and things like that, and working my way up the ranks, So, and I was good at it. I was good at photography, and I was like, all right, cool, I think I can do this. And so I got the courage in 2012 to go, all right, I'm out. I'm gonna do this freelance thing for a bit. And I really wanted to do fashion. I felt like I had, because my mom was a fashion designer, I felt like I had a little bit of a edge to kind of stand out. And so when I did that, I had a good friend of mine who was a part of an agency downtown Dallas, Kim Dawson, and she would kind of help me out with models that wanted some test shoots and things like that, and I would test with them, and I had built this huge catalog that I just wanted to be able to show people my portfolio when I went up and, you know, to pitch to others. But one night, I'm in Deep Ellum at an Andrew Bell concert, and I had just come out from a shoot. I had all my hard drives in my car, on my camera. You could probably see where this is going. and so I leave the concert. Everyone had a great time. It was awesome. And I get back to my car, and like my glove box is open. And I was like, no. I looked in the back seat, and I'm like, no, the Glidecam too. like, why the Glidecam? And you left a bottle of water? You didn't take the water? like, and so I'm just going like, okay, cool. All the work that I've done for 2 years is gone, except like most of the JPEGs that I've saved on Dropbox. Like, thank God for Dropbox. It kind of like kept me alive for a little bit longer, but then it just squashed my inspiration. It just motivation for like wanting to continue to do photography was just zilch, nothing. Then I was like, okay, what's next? Let me get married, maybe, and then let me have some kids. I think that'll, you know. So I mean, but still trying to keep it together, trying to keep the freelance thing going, trying not to lose all momentum, and did that, and got 2 beautiful kids out of it, and they're my pride and joy currently, and I do pretty much everything I do right now for them, and so this road back to, I guess, recovery has been like very strenuous on myself, and trying to figure out how do I get the motivation to do what I know I love to do again. And a lot of it took a hard road. I mean, I had to go through splitting up with my kid's mom, and a lot of things that kind of like personally just like pulled me apart. And through that journey, I found out what my voice was. And to fast forward the story a little bit, 2016, I went to, during the height, like I think probably the peak moment of like the Black Lives Matter movement, I was kind of just stuck on like, man, I don't necessarily want to go out and protest because my kids need me. Like, I can't just go out and just be like, boom. Although everything in me wanted to do that, I just figured out, okay, what can I do to be a part of it? Just to say like I was here and I was present, and I had something positive to say. And through finding that out, what was birthed out of it was a project that I started called Black Love. And I went to Brooklyn, New York for that's one of the photos I took. But I went to Brooklyn, New York to a festival called Afropunk. It was centered around Black culture and the things that we feel like are near and dear to us, and what you know, what we love about being Black and what we love about our culture. And so when I went there, mind you, this is like when I moved to Dallas, I was in a predominantly white school. I was around a lot of people that didn't really look like me. And so going to a festival like this was very like, whoa, like there's a lot of Black people. And it's weird to even say that, because like you would think like, oh, you know a lot of Black people, right? But I wasn't aware of how much I had been separated from people that looked like me. Does that make sense? And so when I went there, I was just inspired to take photos of everyone. And because of my story of being like, you know, kind of separated from the family that I started. I kind of like focused on people who were in love at the festival. And on Snapchat, I was like, I just kind of, as an accountability thing, I was like, while I'm here, I'm gonna take as many photos of all the couples here as I can. And not knowing that, you know, I was gonna end up starting this project, I just kind of shot all the couples and just start, hey, just get together. Yeah, I work for Afropunk, sure. Like, you know, like just whatever I could do to get them to kind of like trust me, you know? And so at first it became for me, and then it just started, I just kept doing it. And day 2 of the festival, like, it was a 2-day festival, and the second day of the festival, I started getting better at just stepping up to people and being bold and like, hey, I love how you guys are sitting right here. Let me take a photo of you real quick. And they were loving it. They're like, what's your Instagram? I want my photo and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, sure. And then it'll be on the Afropunk website. And so so Sunday night, what happened to be the first night of, or the same night the VMAs were on MTV. And if you were watching MTV, the VMAs, they gave like Kanye like 4 minutes to like speak about whatever he wanted to speak about. And I didn't listen to it, but then he premiered like his music video right after he spoke, which ended up being Fade and starring Tiana Taylor. She's doing like this workout, kind of like vintage workout video. If you haven't seen it and you want to see it, go ahead, check it out. At the end of the music video, there's this like nativity scene, and Tiana Taylor and her husband, he plays for the Cavaliers. Anyway, they just had a baby, and there's this like nativity like scene, and they're holding each other with their baby. And I'm also following Twitter because we all know like award shows and Twitter just like the best night you ever have. It's like everyone goes crazy on Twitter and you're watching it real time. It's like, yes, this is what America's about. And so, and so all of a sudden, I didn't realize I was following Tiana Taylor on Twitter, and I'm editing the photos, watching, you know, the VMAs, and then also my phone's on Twitter. And so going through all these photos, like, oh my gosh, and my friends that with me to the festival, they're like, dude, these photos are actually really good. And I'm going like, okay, sure. And all of a sudden, after the video plays, Tiana Taylor tweets in like this long, like caps space in between each letter, like Black Love. And I just go, huh, that's it. And like, it just was like, right there in that moment, I was like, that's exactly why I need to do it. It would just seem like the right time. And I was just in the right place and in the right space of mind to think like, this is relevant and this needs to be done, and this could be my way to use what I do and what I've done to impact some change or give hope to people. And so that birthed my Black Love Project. And since then, it's just been an onslaught of ideas, just been looking for different ways to use my perspective on life and use that towards my art. And so, I mean, in a nutshell, that's my story. So, man, I don't, going from there, I guess like from that point on, I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna own this. I'm gonna own my perspective. I'm gonna own my voice. And instead of using my voice, I'd rather use my voice. And so, because especially today, when we look on social media, when we look on news, it's like everyone's got something to say, but nothing to do. And I just didn't want to be one of those people. I didn't want to be someone who's just talking about it and just like, you know, that's why I didn't go to the protests. You know, I went to some, but I mean, I just didn't want that to be all I did. I wanted to be able to impact in the way that I knew I could impact. And that was the way I knew how to do it. So I didn't fully think the project all the way through. I didn't think about it being a long-term project. I thought just in the moment, this is something that I feel like I can do. And I've learned a lot of things along the way of pushing it out. And it was gonna be a physical book at one point. It was just gonna be a blog at some point. It was gonna be Instagram, kind of like Humans in New York. I thought all the possible things that I could, like, you know, make money from this, because it's not like I'm doing it out of, you know, out of a passion. But I always like, I want to keep going, but I can't really sustain it without money. And so that's when I was like, okay, I want this to stay pure. So I don't necessarily want to make money off of this. So I gotta get my business popping. And so I just went heavy into just like following with models and different musicians that were in the city, like, hey, do you need photos? Do you need blah, blah, blah? And on the side, I would just kind of like, on the back burner, have this project and just steady, just like kind of growing it, you know, story by story. And so what it eventually evolved into when I got back to Dallas was I would take couples that I knew and I would tell their story and couple their story with a photo shoot that I did with them. It took off. It was a lot heavier than I really thought it was gonna be. And it became overwhelming, but the response was good. It was good to know that I was making an impact, you know? And so, especially in a time where it was like, every time I opened up Facebook, some black kid got shot, some, you know, like it was something. And I was just like, okay. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's just so frustrating. It's just like, no, there's just zero hope anywhere. And, you know, I was just like, okay, least I can do is show people loving each other, you know? And so, yeah. I mean, I think that's it, Eric. AKA Velcro Kid. AKA Dude with the Toys. Q&A, we can open up for Q&A. So, I learned this in Stafford Tree Co. Through Rocky. I have this, like, a part of my personality is to always share what I'm doing. And so, like, he told me the part of my personality that is, if I do something, I want to be able to share it with the world. Like, that's just, if you ever been to Stafford Tree Co., he like basically just jot downs, you fill out these forms and he kind of evaluates who you are, so to speak. And then that was one of the feedback I got back, which is a pretty good point to bring up. Thank you for that question. At the beginning of 2016, I did the Stafford Tree Co. thing with Rocky. And his takeaway from my evaluation was that, hey, instead of tweeting or instead of writing a Facebook post, think of a photo that could, you didn't? Okay. Think of a photo that would communicate exactly what you want to type. And I didn't get it at the time. I was like, okay, sure. But then the whole year with that in the back of my mind, I was like, when I hit that project, I was like, yes, I get it. I get exactly what you meant. And so, to your point though, after I took the photos, I was like, okay, now what? Like, what am I gonna do with these? And that's when the whole Black Love Twitter thing, that whole part came in. I was like, this is how I can do it. This is how I can, you know. So what I did was I bought the domain. blacklove.com was something totally different. I'm not gonna talk about what it was, but so that wasn't in the plans. But I was like, you know, I'm progressive, blacklove.co. Okay, let's go. Let's rock with it. So I was like, okay, cool, sweet. And when I got the domain, I was pretty excited. because I was like, this isn't taken. I can't believe blacklove.co isn't taken. Like, you know, you would think that was something that would be easily done, but yeah. Right, so I ran like this mini campaign on my Instagram, like looking for black couples, and what's interesting, I got an interesting response. It was like, yay, people were like tagging other couples on my Instagram and like, hey, you should do this story with him. I think y'all's story is perfect. And then there was a lot of other people that are going like, dude, I don't know any black couples, and that rose another challenge, and I was just like, it's just interesting how relevant this project is in the course of, like, especially when we're talking about Dallas, a city that we would deem as diverse. But I was getting a lot of people going like, I would love to, you know, submit a couple, but I don't know any black couples. And so it just let me know even more that like this project is pretty needed. So. To tell stories limitlessly. Yeah, pretty much. Like that's, I mean, yeah. And it's not 10 words, but I mean, was that 5? 4? Okay, we got there. Right, so I don't ever want to monetize my project because I feel like that would just like, yeah, it wouldn't be for the right reasons. And so in me figuring out how to keep it going that way, I've, you know, I had some magazines wanting to get the photos and wanting to, but I was like, no, I don't want to get famous off of this. This isn't about me. These aren't my words. I'm just using my platform to boost these people up. You know what I'm saying? And so, through my own means, like through my time, and just, you know, whenever something stands out where I feel like it's a valuable story that needs to be shared, I just contact the couple or contact, and then just.
But you're still doing your side photography, and that's how you.
Well, I would call my photography and art direction like full. That's a full-time thing, and then my Black Love project is just like my passion. Yeah. My kids, um, um, because I'm a father, and what's my priorities to me is just being there for them, and in the capacity that I'm supposed to be there for them. So, so I was like, if I'm gonna stay in Dallas, I don't want this project to end, but you know what? Not only was it that, it was just my mom and dad and my brothers and sisters are also here. I'm a part of this community called Weld. They're great. I built a career here, and I feel like to stick it out would be good to do. Okay. Weld. Weld is a co-working space that was started by Austin Mann and Esther Havens, and in the Design District, and they opened up maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and there's a lot of photographers, designers, videographers, and a couple businesses that work outside of that work in Weld. So we have 3 different studios with full psychs, 2 different studios with full psychs, and so that's where I do a large, probably like 90% of my photography work. Yeah. So, and your second question.
Yeah, how did you progress from photography into art design?
Right, it was definitely not by design. It was just kind of seeing a need and what people were wanting that were contacting me for photography. I would go, okay, just as a way to strengthen my portfolio, I was like, it looks like you need photography, but you also need this. and you also need this. I know how to do all three of those things fairly well. So, like, does that make sense? Like, let me go ahead and see how we can fill those gaps for you as a client and kind of boost my revenue, and just make what I do a little bit more valuable. Yeah, so for a long time, that's a good question. For a long time, I guess, long time. Throughout 2016, my plate was really full, personally, and so I had to kind of focus in on one part that I knew I could do really well, and that was just kind of portrait sessions, and you know, and if I were to do anything outside of that, I wanted to make sure I had a team that could handle the extra curricular things. Like, I got called to shoot a behind-the-scenes video for a company called Magpul that sells like guns and things like that. And so I shot it, but then I had someone else edit it. Does that make sense? It was a 3-day shoot. I just shot it, and I was like, I don't have the mental capacity to just sit down and edit this. So let me just go ahead and pass this off to someone and give them. So that's kind of, if I was to take something, I would take it, but okay, what do I have time to do, and what do I have the capacity work-wise to give them a good product? So, yeah. Yeah. Thank you.